Okay, kicking off the list at number 5, we have SCP-096, or also known as the Shy Guy. He's a shy boy, I guess, little shy. Kidding, he's actually terrifying. He's a terrifying boy in that case. SCP-096 is a humanoid creature who is actually really chill. He's super calm, cool, and collect, that is, until you look at his face. So if you want to have a chat with the Shy Guy, you might have to do it over text message. Just don't FaceTime. For the love of God, do not click FaceTime. Because once you look at his face, it enters a stage of emotional distress. It will cover up its face and start losing it. I mean, it screams and it cries. It pretty much has a mental breakdown. And then it starts chasing whoever looked at its face. And after that, well, there isn't exactly an after in this case, if you get what I'm saying. You will then get chased down until it kills you. And then only after that, it will go back to its neutral state. So in this neutral passive state, SCP-096 will passively follow you. So if you're just texting, kind of doing your own thing, it'll kind of wander behind you, maybe poke in, see who you're talking to. Oh, it's that X again? Not a good idea, I don't know. He's just there, right? Like, have you seen Bird Box? Take some notes from Bird Box. So like I mentioned, this thing is really fast. And if you think you can run through a few doors, maybe catch a couple elevators, and Bob's your uncle, you're horribly, wildly mistaken. It will rip through whatever barrier is in front of it. I mean, this thing can rip through elevators. What do you think it's gonna do with your spinal cord? I don't know. And if you want to find this thing and play peekaboo, there are a few locations at the heavy containment zone where you would be able to find the Shy Guy. Locations like Gas Catwalk, 3-way Gas Catwalk, the Graded Hallway, and the all-metal corridor, I believe. It has also appeared in the small server room, but that's because an unfortunate guard looked at its face. And that guard was, of course, brutally killed. And number 4, SCP-173. It rhymes. Isn't that neat? Love when that happens. Next up on our list is the Euclid class SCP-173, and it's personally one of my favorites. Now, normally you want to avoid most of these monsters, right? Make as little contact with it as possible, whether that's physical contact or in some cases, eye contact. Well, when it comes to SCP-173, in order to get near it, you need at least 3 people with you. In order for SCP-173 to not kill you, somebody has to maintain direct eye contact with it. And wouldn't it suck if you worked with somebody who went out for a smoke break? They're like, hey, you got this, right? You're like, yeah, for sure, take your time. So what exactly happens if you break this eye contact? Well, SCP-173 will then snap your neck at the base of your skull or strangle you, which I guess would take a long time with my neck, eh guys? I see your comments talking about my noodle neck. I see you all. I'm gonna respond to all of them. Top 5 people that shouldn't be commenting about my neck anymore. Looking right at you, that's right. I'd personally go for the neck snap, way faster, I don't know. Its origins are still unknown, but it's made up of concrete and rebar with a Krylon spray paint thrown into the mix. And the best part of this one, well, at least 2 people have to be staring at it, because even if you blink, that counts as breaking eye contact, even for that tiny amount of time. Maybe you could wink though, if you're just like, I don't know, that's how some dogs blink. It stresses me out. But that's so stressful. Better hope that if you wear contacts, they don't get dry at work, or else you're screwed. And of course, SCP-173 must be locked up at all times. Even after entering the container, you must lock the doors behind you. The only time you would go in is bi-weekly, and that's just to clean up the holding cell, of course. There's this reddish-brown substance on the floor, and apparently it's a fun combination of blood and feces, which sounds perfectly splendid. The sounds that SCP-173 make are reported to sound like scraping stone, which is fun. Even when nobody is inside, this is supposedly a normal thing. And if anybody walks by and they don't hear that, it means we got a problem. And you must report it to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. Hashtag duty and blood. Gross. Number 3, SCP-682. This one's pretty fun. So SCP-682 is described as a large reptilian monster. Its origin, of course, remains unknown, as most of these are, but this creature is very smart. And at one point, this creature was engaging in a complex conversation with SCP-079, which was also a Euclid class in the form of a microcomputer. So if it can communicate by those means, it's got to be pretty street smart at the same time. Few things to know about SCP-682. It hates all life, ever. You, me, a tree? No siree. So what makes this creature so threatening? Why is it a Keter class? Well, it can move at extremely high speeds, its reflexes are just unreal, and its physical body also changes in size and shape. So this thing will eat a bunch of objects and then grow in size. Or maybe it can just shed a couple pounds of material and shrink down to a small boy. If you want to ask this thing a few questions for some reason, that's a big no-no. Nobody is to attempt communication with it at all. Ever. Period. End of story. Anybody who tries to communicate at all with it will be removed and restrained by force. Imagine that. Imagine the guard just standing there like, bless you. Ah, damn, sorry, I know. Reflexes, sorry. So how does one contain SCP-682? Well, you gotta get a 5 by 5 by 5 meter chamber with a 25 centimeter acid resistant steel plate lining on the inside. The chamber itself should ideally be filled with hydrochloric acid, so much so that SCP-682 is fully submerged in it. It's kind of like a hot tub, but I don't know. If it moves or speaks or does anything at all for that matter, you gotta handle it. You gotta handle it fast and forcefully, because this reptile from hell doesn't play around. Number 2, SCP-409. Now, with Superman's kryptonite being, well, kryptonite, you have to wonder if there's any type of crystal or rock that can do that kind of damage to humans. Well, fun fact, there is, and it's SCP number 409. Known as the contagious crystal, this Keter class crystal stands at 1.5 meters tall and will crystallize any object that comes into contact with it. So it takes about 3 hours to fully convert you into crystals, inside and out. And I thought growing pains were bad. Eek. Now this one is terrifying because it looks harmless. I mean, obviously. In fact, it looks like a large quartz crystal, so it's inviting more than anything. I love rocks. I actually had a rock collection growing up. Probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but it's too late. The only way to carry SCP-409 is by using a granite case. Now, you know we all have those granite cases lying around, you know? You got one in your garage? Cool, use that one. Granite is the only thing immune to this effect, and to this day we're not sure why. This is terrifying because you don't see anything scary, there's no warning. Whereas other SCPs, like the ones that I just mentioned, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting into just by looking at it. Like if there's a lizard in acid, you're like, oh, it's probably bad news. If this SCP was sitting on your granite desk at work, I'm sure you would lose about 8 co-workers within the first week. Cindy walks by, she's like, oh, it's nice, that's for candles. And then just, she's dead, that's it. So what does this even feel like? Well, let me tell you, it's not pleasant. It feels a lot like frostbite. And once your entire body is crystallized, it will then start to make creaky noises. And then, boom, you explode into 1,000 fragments. With force, too. You don't just like kind of crumble and collapse. You go, bah, and you explode. Probably taking out some eyes in the meantime. There's no getting out of that one. So once you touch it, you got a few hours to say your goodbyes. And not even nukes are gonna stop this one. And finally, we saved my favorite for last, number 1, SCP-049. SCP-049 is referred commonly to the Plague Doctor. And this one hits close to home because I played an evil Plague Doctor at a theme park for an entire month for Halloween a couple years back. That's me. Yep, you can probably tell by the stressed out shoulders and the sick pose. That's how I stood at work all the time. I was like, always about to sneeze. My shoulders hiked up. I love Plague Doctors. I think they're just the creepiest thing already, like just by how they look. Haunting of Bly Manor, one of the background ghosts right off the bat is a Plague Doctor, and I got so excited to see him in the background of all these scenes. And if you love that show and want to know more about these hidden ghosts, Lindsay Ivan did a bang up job with those, so check her out on our Most Amazing Top 10 channel and Top 10 Hidden Ghosts that you missed in the Haunting of Bly Manor. SCP-049 is a bit sicker than your average. This Euclid class SCP is a humanoid entity that of course resembles that of a Plague Doctor. It was discovered in the town of Montauban, which is located in southern France, during a raid. They actually found a few other SCPs called SCP-049-2s, which I'll get into a little later on. So let's talk about the design. These aren't clothes per se. These garments have actually grown out of SCP-49's body. That's quite the beak it's got there, wow. So the best part of this SCP is that just by one touch, it can kill you. And then after that, it roasts you and talks about how you did little to kill the pestilence. And yes, when I worked at this theme park, I was able to talk to guests, and yes, I had an absolute amazing time saying that to everybody. So after its touch of death, it will use whatever it has in its medical bag to bring you back. Only you come back as a zombie type humanoid. Yeah, those are the SCP-49-2s that I mentioned earlier. So after this point, it can control you. You have basic response and motor functions, but ultimately this plague doctor decides what your day entails.
Coming in at number 4, SCP-049, aka the Plague Doctor, and this guy is pretty iconic when it comes to the Foundation's fandom. Of course he is, he's a Plague Doctor, the most fashionable of all doctors. I don't know. SCP-049 is a Euclid class humanoid entity, which in the Foundation standards means that he's kind of alright, but they still keep a close eye on him because he's unpredictable. He appears in thick black robes with a ceramic mask indicative of the medieval Plague Doctor profession. He's also highly intelligent, willingly conversing with Foundation researchers on a regular basis. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Well, SCP-049 has one motivation: to eliminate what he commonly refers to as the pestilence, and this skip goes to great lengths to combat its overwhelming presence, becoming highly aggressive and horrifyingly resourceful when he believes an individual is infected. If left unchecked, SCP-049 will cause all biological functions of an organism to cease through direct skin contact, and then begin to conduct what it refers to as surgery on the victim. In short, SCP-049 is a medieval necromancer convinced that humanity is a plague on the planet. Great stuff. Next up at number 3, SCP-096. Imagine a creature that once it has targeted you, nothing, literally nothing on the planet can stop it from tracking you down, ending your life in agonizing pain, and then consuming you from head to toe. Wow. Let me introduce you to SCP-096. In essence, the most terrifyingly clingy creature on the planet. 096 is a humanoid entity that is grossly twisted out of proportion, with nearly zero muscle mass and long, claw-like arms that dangle below its waist. The thing that makes this skip so oppressive is that the only containment procedure is to ensure that no one ever views its face, because that's the trigger that results in 100% of cases being brutally killed. Whenever someone views SCP-096's face, be it directly via video recording or even a photograph, it enters a stage of bizarre emotional distress, screaming, crying and babbling, and then begin running to the person or persons who viewed its image. And then it's good night Vienna, lights out. Creepy stuff. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-106, also known as the Old Man, and perhaps the most nightmare-inducing creature in the entirety of the SCP Foundation. 106 is a Keter class anomaly, which means that it's really bad, and the Foundation goes to extremely difficult lengths in maintaining its containment. So bad that this guy is contained in a sealed container of lead-lined steel times 40, as well as a secondary containment area of various chemical fluid spheres under 24-hour surveillance. So why is the Foundation so terrified of this guy? Well, 106 is completely unkillable, appearing to be an elderly humanoid at an advanced stage of decomposition, in a constant state of rot. It currently serves the purpose to hunt down its prey, usually a human within the 10 to 25 years of age bracket, incapacitate them by damaging their major organs, and then pull them into its pocket dimension, where SCP-106 coats them in its digestive fluids and slowly feasts on them. Yeah. What a way to go, right? Well, the Foundation is stumped and no physical interaction is allowed at any time. Until they come up with some form of solution, SCP-106 is locked away in a box and the Foundation just hopes for the best. Not so comforting. And finally, at our number 1 spot, the Scarlet King. Of course, we have to end with the big bad baddie of the SCP universe, and that's saying something because, well, there's a lot of them. All of them pale in comparison to the King of the Darkness below, who is painstakingly kept at bay in a futile attempt by the Foundation. In the end, the Scarlet King will be summoned, and the world has to cross its fingers and hope the Foundation have got themselves in gear. The Scarlet King is a cosmic god whose awareness brought him great pain and thus declared a war on existence itself, with the sole intention to utterly destroy all life. In the canon, he had 7 bride daughters who birthed 7 leviathans as his children, some of which are entities under the Foundation's containment. There is one glimmer of hope though, because the Scarlet King's 7th bride daughter birthed SCP-999, perhaps the most joyous and loving creature in the known universe. It is thought that the only way to defeat the Scarlet King is with light and love and laughter that can brighten the blackest of hearts. But, well, that's a story for another video. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-3998. And the fact that it took nearly 4,000 articles for a proper Coven style witch to crop up in the SCP Foundation is mind-boggling enough, because witches are great. We all know that, right? Yeah, technically SCP-239 is a witch, but come on, I'm not buying it. SCP-3998 is a human cadaver that expired sometime in the late 17th century, allegedly in Salem, Massachusetts. This entity, which is classified as a safe object, lacks any legs and is covered in extensive, brutal 4th degree burns. Sometime after the cadaver's death, which reportedly is Candice Hayes, a 17th century woman accused of witchcraft, although differing reports state otherwise, 3998's remains were collected and fashioned into a scarecrow held together by wicker nails and wire. The thing is with this skip is that it constantly exudes flammable liquid from its bone, composed primarily of ethanol and human fat. It ignites each night between 11 PM and 4 AM, engulfing itself and any person in the vicinity in flames. As targets are left burning, boiling ethanol appears in their stomach, causing massive internal damage and violently rupturing their body. Those that 3998 affects cannot be extinguished until SCP-3998 itself is extinguished. Thankfully, it's constantly kept in an oxygen-free, vacuum-sealed room, but you know, it's terrifying enough. Next up at number 4, SCP-2059, and this guy might just turn your stomach because gross doesn't quite do it justice. SCP-2059 is marked as Euclid but registered as a Class 4 hostile amorphous entity. It is an autonomous and sentient mass of flesh, bones and organs, seemingly dominated by a large yellow sensory organ that does not correspond to that of any known species. The sensory organ resembles an eye, but further study has shown that it is capable of detecting radiation and heat signatures, so who knows what the hell it is. As of now, 2059's mass comprises of 1 blue whale, 1 giant squid of unknown species, 2 bottlenose dolphins, several specimens of various livestock, approximately 30 human beings, 1 dead human being in advanced stages of decomposition, several household pets, around 300 rodents, and an uncountable amount of insects. Picture all of those creatures in a massive blender, deconstructed and jumbled up, flattened on the floor like a pancake, and you get SCP-2059. Even worse though, this thing has managed to speak to the Foundation in a rare encounter where one of the human beings consumed by it, a Buddhist monk that disappeared in the late 1800s, explained that the creature was a child, an unknown alien species that didn't know what it was or what Earth was and just couldn't stop consuming. Yeah, that's enough of that one. Coming in at number 3, SCP-1471. And boy is this a good one. If you're a fan or frequent reader of the SCP Foundation, you'll know that this guy is pretty iconic in the fandom. Technically, SCP-1471 is an app, commonly known as Mallow, that summons forth a terrifying creature that stalks you for the remainder of your life. 1471 is a Euclid class object in the form of a free 9.8 megabyte application for mobile devices named Mallow ver 1.0.0, which is sporadically found on online application stores. It has no listed developer and is somehow able to bypass the application approval process, going directly to distribution. Nothing too sinister yet though, right? Well, after SCP-1471 is installed, the individual will begin to receive visual text messages at an increasing rate, all of which contain the creature known as SCP-1471-A, a large humanoid figure with a canid-like skull and long black hair. During the first 24 hours following installation, the device will receive images taken at locations commonly frequented by the individual. As time passes, things heat up and the images get closer and closer to the individual's location. Well, unfortunately, once this app is installed, there are few solutions. Most succumb to madness, others are institutionalized, while in some rare cases, some learn to live with their new creepy companion. companion, kind of the closest you'll get to a happily ever after in the SCP Foundation. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-682, a creature of such seething hatred that not even the literal personification of joy can stir his angry soul. SCP-682 is a Keter class entity that the Foundation has gone to great lengths attempting to destroy, but has always ultimately failed. This skip is a large, vaguely reptile-like creature of unknown origin. In essence, it's a huge frickin' lizard that ravenously kills anything that crosses its path. It also appears to be extremely intelligent, often conversing with researchers in the early stages of containment. SCP-682 has demonstrated a hatred for all life, which it has expressed in several interviews during its containment. It has extremely high speed, strength and reflexes, and its physical body grows and changes, decreasing or increasing in size as it consumes or sheds material. 682 must continually be kept in a tank of hydrochloric acid, keeping it in a state of constant regeneration and degeneration as it attempts to negate its wounds. That's the thing though, this thing can't be killed, which is why the Foundation are so fearful of it. SCP-682 has often been seen moving and speaking with 87% of its body destroyed or rotted, and the Foundation have tried to utilize some of the most destructive entities in their possession to destroy 682, but to no avail. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, SCP-087. While technically not a creature per se, it hits our number 1 spot as the perfect example of horror done well in the SCP Foundation, for a few reasons, but we'll get to that. In essence, SCP-087 is an unlit platform staircase located on the campus of an unknown university, and as far as the Foundation is aware, it seemingly has no end, extending down forever into the darkness. You can't see more than 1.5 flights of stairs down, no matter how bright your light is, and there's the constant sound of someone crying, possibly a child, below you, no matter how far you go down. Oh, and then there's the face, a white opaque set of eyes and no nostrils appearing out of midair to terrify the literal bejesus out of you. In essence, SCP-087 is the fear of the unknown, and that's why it works so well. As the Foundation states, 4 D-class personnel were sent to explore it on separate occasions with increasingly terrifying results. The 4th and final expedition is purposely redacted from 087's file, maintaining the horrifying mystery of SCP-087. Do we even want to know what's down there, or shall we just leave that door very firmly and permanently shut?
Kicking us off at number 5, we've got SCP-2599. Most reality benders are dangerous because they can change the world according to their will. If they have something sinister in mind, they'll put it into action and there isn't much anyone can do to stop them, or even realize what's going on. But with 2599, anyone can speak changes into existence. Like, as long as you have access to the 14-year-old girl now known as SCP-2599, you can potentially get anything you want. Well, at least sort of. SCP-2599 has an anomalous effect that breaks down into 2 components. First, they can't disobey any direct commands. This has no limits, even ending up with 2599 scoring a 0 on the psychic resistance scale. Hypothetically, you could tell 2599 to fly and they would. Or ask them to alter the composition or color of a piece of paper and it would happen. However, part 2 adds an interesting caveat to this anomalous quality. 2599, while always obeying direct commands, will never be able to fully carry out the tasks. They'll mostly clean a room or get most of the way through a book or even mostly kill a person. That's right, if you ask 2599 to kill someone, they'll stab them but somehow manage to only hit necrotic tissue left over from a prior heart attack, so they won't actually die. What's been described so far is mostly within the realm of reason though. If you were to order 2599 to do something that changes aspects of reality or breaks the laws of physics, they would mostly be able to do that. Of course, it wouldn't be to the exact specifications you gave, but it would be close. Careful giving orders though, paradoxes can be really finicky. One time a researcher gave 2599 the command, "Do not lie," when repeating these sentences. The following sentence is true, the previous sentence is false. This caused 2599 to totally freeze up, followed by micro changes being noticeable in reality. I don't think even 2599 comes close to understanding the scope of their reality altering abilities. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-343. Oh god, I almost forgot about this guy. See what I did there? Man, maybe I did spend too much time at home. Ignoring what I just said, let's discuss the reality-altering capabilities of SCP-343. Right now, he's just chilling in a Foundation holding cell. Foundation staff saw him essentially teleport from the street to a rooftop in Prague and detained him shortly after. However, there's really nothing they can do to keep him there. 343 comes and goes as he pleases. Most of the time, he'll chill out with the guards and talk for hours. He's managed to lavishly outfit his cell and is known to head out for periods of time to snag a burger or two. Mostly, he's harmless, or I suppose as far as we know. It's hard to tell when he literally claims to be God and can manipulate reality. Actually, those powers are a little worrisome, especially when you read a little deeper. There used to be a Foundation doctor that was a little curious about the actual implications of such a reality bender. He did a little digging and got disappeared. Like, there are little bits and pieces of the doctor and his research, but no official records of any such person in any Foundation database. Even though it seems that 343 increases morale and is able to speak intelligently on literally any topic, he might be worried that someone could find out some incriminating information. If that happens consistently, 343 might even decide to blow this popsicle stand for good, altering reality so that the Foundation itself never existed. Or maybe, just maybe, he'll keep eating burgers and shooting the breeze with security guards. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-2241. Now, if you want someone totally volatile, look no further than 2241. Children are volatile for sure, especially when they have reality-changing powers and don't totally understand how to use them or the implications of such abilities. There's a lot of growing to be done, and if the proper care isn't taken, a young reality bender could end up causing some serious issues. Keeping an eye on 2241 should be of the utmost importance then. This is a 7-year-old boy named Cameron. When he was discovered by the Foundation, he had some telekinetic abilities and appeared to have latent reality bending abilities. In order to keep him largely in line, Foundation folks decided to start putting him through a training regimen. Of course, they got to do some research too. He's convinced that he's a superhero being trained for heroic duties. At first, he avoided violence, opting to turn knives into chocolate and teleporting people out of harm's way, but this proved to be undesirable for testing purposes, so the Foundation cranked up the difficulty and life or death stakes during these operations. Whether this will negatively affect his mental state is yet to be seen. It definitely sped up the awakening of new abilities though. This little lad is zipping through the air, seeing seconds into the future, and transforming matter without needing to see it. He considers it all leveling up so he can help people, but the researchers within the Foundation may have more sinister and militaristic plans for the young dude. Eventually he'll realize the scope of his own powers and will have to make a choice about what he's doing with them. Let's hope he makes the right one. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-3999. Man, if there is one reality-altering skip that seems to come up again and again, it's gotta be 3999. Poor researcher Talaran, stuck in an insane jail of his own invention. This SCP threatens to end the world as it poses a ZK-class end-of-reality scenario. Yep. Ending reality counts as altering it. For whatever reason, this world-ending anomaly took great interest in a Foundation researcher known as Talaran. To prevent the destructive effects of this thing from reaching the world at large, the Foundation hid Talaran away, far away from human populations. Although even this is debatable, as the document outlining special containment procedures seems to have been heavily edited and possibly even altered along with rapidly shifting reality. So the best way to get an idea of what the hell is going on here is to read the document in full. In doing so, you'll see just how unbelievable and hard to understand things can get. It's implied that most of the document is written by Talaran, as they experienced unending torment. 3999 constantly alters reality in the area around them, forcing them to live through truly horrible and painful scenarios over and over again. Although this may be awful for Talaran, the rest of the world is lucky that the effects don't spill over. If 3999 made it to the world at large, we may all have to face down our families dying in front of us, weird Harry Potter references, scented candle confusion, children laughing at us, and of course, ceaseless agony. Thanks, Talaran. And coming in at number 1, we've got SCP-2343. And honestly, this reality bender can keep doing what he's doing. If what he says is correct, we definitely do not want to meet his wife under any circumstances, so let him deal with that and leave him well alone. 2343 is a humanoid that looks to be in his late 50s. The Foundation picked up on his presence after a long night of drinking. Yep, he got too drunk and let his abilities slip. If that's not relatable, I don't know what is. So the Foundation picked him up and brought him in for questioning. During this time, he produced some cigarettes and a lighter, neither of which could be found afterwards. Or maybe it was a guitar. Who knows? Either way, he seems to be able to voluntarily restructure reality, and he's been pretty responsible with it. Mostly he just grabs food or cigarettes for his own consumption, but the night he was found, he was assaulted by his wife, and then the Foundation took him in. This is particularly bad news because it appears that his wife has quite the temper and can also alter reality. So when she finds out where her husband's being kept, she probably won't take it in stride. No, she'll probably turn everyone inside out and then beat up her husband again. No wonder the poor guy took to drinking. He's pretty worried about this happening too. In fact, he's added his own addendums to these special containment procedures, calling out the Foundation and their reality anchors, attempting to convince him to work with him to find his wife before things get out of hand. I'd say help the man.